Hi there everyone, it's Jan from at Jan's Craft Stash UK. I've had lots of people asking me how I do my card sketches, so I thought I'd just do a little very short video today just to kind of show you the process that I use or I go through in order to do them. So okay, let's kind of get on with it. So for this week's card sketch, and I'll be using this week, I think I've done quite a lot of squares and diamonds and straight lines in the last couple of weeks. So today I fancy doing something probably with circles. So I start off with, I keep all loads of bits of old scrap paper and everything. So I'm going to start off with a quick sketch that I sort of have in my mind. It's not in any way to scale or anything like that. This is just sort of a basic design sketch. So I'm thinking that that's probably going to be sort of roughly the outside of my card, or maybe the mat. And then I usually do, I always have a mat when I do my cards, mainly because my card sketches, mainly because I don't want to work directly on the card. I'd rather work on the bit, you know, the mat bit that's going to go on top of it, so that if it goes disastrously wrong, I haven't really ruined a card. I've just ruined, you know, the top bit. So that's my outline. I tend to work to the same size each time. It's a little bit frustrating, but because it's so kind of limited, and I like to do, I mean, I'd really like to do the big long cards, but the most popular size for cards in like America and Australia and places like that is 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. And I'll give you the actual centimetres and that afterwards. But yeah, so, you know, trying to come up with designs that fit into this space each week, you know, can be a little bit challenging, let's say. But anyway, let's have a go, because I did think of another way around doing it actually last week, and I'll kind of describe that to you as well. So this week I fancy doing something with circles, and instead of doing them kind of in the middle or sort of smaller circles, I fancy something that's a bit quirky, a bit offset really. So my idea I was thinking about was I think I'm going to do quite big circles. Oops, sorry, that's really rough, isn't it? Oh, by the way, I've got problem, it's called shaky hands syndrome, or whatever they call it, and it just means that I can't kind of draw very well anymore. I used to be an artist, but I can't do the fine work anymore because my hands shake too much. But anyway, that's allegedly a circle, and like I said, everything I do I like to do with a mat. So because I like that sort of fine line around it, so I'm going to put a mat around here. I think for this one I want more than one circle, so and I guess if I put circles one inside the other, they look a little bit like a bullseye or a target, so don't really fancy that. There's not much room elsewhere that I can see to put circles. In any case, I've done designs with circles all over the place. So I suppose my idea then is to, in some way, sort of maybe fit another circle or two circles in here somehow. But instead of having them in the middle, I'm thinking about, again, offsetting them. So they're sort of like that. Now, like I say, this is in absolutely no way is this to scale. It's just to give me a rough idea. Now, that looks okay. Anything I'm thinking would fit into a circle. Could be a snowflake, it could be a star. I mean, it doesn't have to be a circle. People can adapt it however they want, but I just fancy that round sort of shape, or that, you know, that kind of compact shape, as opposed to another square, which we've been doing, you know, another square. We've been doing a lot of squares lately, so I don't fancy doing another square or diamonds or anything this week. Right, okay, so I've settled on circle, and I'm looking at least probably 2 matted circles, maybe 3. It depends on how big the biggest circle comes up. Hang on, excuse me, let me just get rid of all the bits that are there from the rubbing out. I've also got to think now about where I'm going to put a sentiment. So a sentiment, it could be on here, but you know, I'm thinking I want to use this space for some sort of embellishment or some sort of nice kind of paper or whatever. So I don't think I want it across there, which means that the only other place to put sentiments will be in these top corners or in the bottom corners. So I think, you know, when I'm looking at a card, I very rarely look down in the bottom right corner. I would miss that. And to me, it just feels a bit odd in the top left hand corner, but anyway, we'll see. So I'm going to say no to the bottom right hand corner. Also, obviously it depends on what sentiments I'm going to use, and whether it's going to be linear or a block sentiment or whatever. That'll make a big difference. I mean, looking at this, I would say probably a linear sentiment, because a block is going to be like another square on here, unless of course I put it in there, which I didn't really want to do. So I'm thinking maybe that a sentiment would look nice here. We could put it here, or we could try putting it down the bottom here and maybe moving this up a little bit to accommodate it. Okay, so that's my first very rough sketch. So this is what I do first. I very roughly sketch out something, and excuse me, just to get some ideas in my head. Okay, so let's put that aside for a moment, and then I'm going to get another piece of paper. Excuse me, leaning over. See if that's a scrap. Yeah, that's a good scrap. Okay, now because I use this size of card all the time, I keep a template which I have already cut out to size, and I've cut a mat to size. Let me just double check that this is actually still in shot. It is. Brilliant. Right, okay, so this is my basic card size, and on it I've got marked my inches and my centimetres. So each week I start off with drawing around this. So I'm still at my sketch stage at the moment. I'm not firming it up at all. I'm just deciding what elements are going where and why. Okay, makes sense to me. Right, okay, so I'm drawing around it. And as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but I've actually got marked on here the centre. I've found the centre of this card, so I've measured across here, found the centre of this line, which is here. The same here, found the centre and the centre. And that for me is essential, because I need to know, even if I'm going to sort of offset something like this, I need to know, you know, where the centre of the card would be, and how odd or how okay that's going to look when I put the card together. So that's my marks, and my next job then is to simply mark those in. And most often I leave those marks in for people who like to be, you know, really a bit sort of careful, like I usually am. I'm a bit OCD, I think, because I like things lined up and I like things equal. Some people can do it just by looking at it, but I tend to need to do it by measuring everything actually. So, right, okay, once I get this done, then that shows me the centre of my card. And I can put things in relative to this. Right, okay. Now, the next thing I do is I use my matte template, which is also cut to size. And this one gives me 1/16 of an inch. It's cut to 1/8 of an inch smaller. So it gives me about a 1/16 all the way around, which I quite like. Sometimes I do it a little bit, you know, leaving a bit more of a gap around it, but mostly I tend to do it like this because it doesn't take up too much room on the card, and yet it gives a nice little border to it. Another way actually when you're making these cards that you can do this is to put masking tape, and I've been doing that a few times lately. You put masking tape, which I don't have any of particularly at the moment, I've just got a bit of scrap tape. So you put a bit of masking tape on the top of that line like that, and then use your, you know, use your coloured inks and daubers and everything to just colour this in, and that way it looks like it's been layered onto a particular colour that you want, but actually it hasn't. It's just inked onto the same piece of paper. Hope that makes sense. Right, so that's my basic outline. Now, looking at my sketch, my kind of idea, I'm going to have a bit of a rummage in my junk box. These are all sorts of offcuts of bits and pieces, and see what I've got. And I've actually got some circles. There's some more circles there, and some more. So whenever I cut sort of templates and that, I tend to, if I've got anything spare left over, I sort of chuck it in here. He's cute. Right, okay, so I have got some circles of various sizes, and I have to say that unfortunately my dies, you know, the die cuts and the dies that I've got are, they're supposed to be stacking dies, but there's such a big gap between them that, you know, they're like a 1/4 of an inch difference each size, and for me that's too much. So I do struggle with this a bit, but anyway, let's see what we can do. Let's put him out of the way. Right, I have some circles, and when I keep them I tend to write on them what sort of size they are, and that way I can use them again. Is that the same size as that? It is. Right, so I won't need that. How big is that? Well, that's not bad, so that sort of fits around the outside. We'll think about that. So looking at my sketch, my biggest circle I have here is 3 1/4, which is 8.3 centimetres. So according to this sketch here, I have this pretty much centered up like that on, you see where that, you know, why that's useful to me, but I have it over to one side. So if I put that there, so it's still centered up on, you know, between, there's still the same gap between there and there and there and there, it's just that it's over to one side. Let's see what that looks like. And I have another one here which is 2 7/8, which is 7.3, but I don't know if you can see that it's the next size down in the circle that I've got in the dies, but it's such a big, you know, it's such a big gap. The mat is like really big. So if I do choose to go with this design, what I might do, excuse me for a moment, while I get some dies, what I might do is that one? Yeah. I wonder where the biggest one is. I wonder if it's this one. Sorry about this, but this is process anyway for me. Yeah, it was that one that I used. So instead of die cutting it out, take that out a minute, instead of actually die cutting it out, which means that the, you know, the gap is, that it's actually this size, what I might do is draw around it and fussy cut something So let me just put that on there, and I'll probably draw around the inside of it, and that gives me sort of a little bit smaller circle. I don't know if it's going to help, but hopefully it will do. And then I'll probably fussy cut it. So you can see that it's slightly smaller than the actual die cut. And in fact it is, whoops, dropped my ruler, use another one. The original die cut is 3 1/4, and this one is 3 1/8. So it makes it, you know, it makes a big difference. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw around the inside of this one and fussy cut it instead of die cutting it. That way, so I can put this one out of the way. That way, this one here, which was my next size, I believe. Yeah, 2 7/8, did I say? Did I say 2 7/8 is the next size? Let's try. Yeah, it's got a bit less, you know, the actual border is a bit less, which I like. So that suits me. So I can die cut that one. Right, so that's my 2 7/8 one. Let me just draw around that so I can see where it is. Don't forget, this is still a rough sketch. This is not completely worked out. I will firm it up. So that's that. That's my outer circle that I wanted. Now I'm going to want an inner circle. And, oh, did I look at that, by the way? No, it's too big. You see, look, if I put that on there, so a lot of this is trial and error. Although that makes a nice edging to this circle and it doesn't stick out too much, it's actually too big for the bigger circle. Let me see what happens if I layer it up on the die cut circle. Okay, well that would work, because then it means it doesn't have so much border. So that's a possibility. Maybe I will use this when I come to do the ladies version of this card. I don't know if I would put the scalloped edge, you know, on a man's card, but I usually do one female version and one male version of each of the cards. But anyway, so that's something to think about, right? So I have that circle sorted out now. So that's what I've got at the moment. Now my inner circle, so my next size circle die I've got downwards is 2 1/4, and I still want this to be on this centre line like that, but I don't want it in the middle, because otherwise, as I say, it looks like an eyeball or you know, bullseye or something. So I'm going to bring that over to the side as well. So let's give that a try. Okay, I'm going to draw around that and we'll see how this looks. Oops, pencil doesn't want to move. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of this is about trial and error. Once you've got your basic measurements down, a lot of it is just cutting out pieces, saving them as templates, and basically fiddling around with them until you get something that you think is quite pleasing to your eye or looks balanced in some way. So this is my next circle down, which is 2 1/8, which is very handy because that gives me just the border I want. So if that goes in there, like that. Right, now that's getting a bit confusing in the middle. I can see, you know, lots of lines everywhere. So I'm actually going to take these lines out. I know where, you know, I've got it lined up now where I want it to be. This is one of the easier cards. There's not, you know, I'll probably do a couple of these videos because this one doesn't seem to involve much maths. Whereas some of the cards really, really are very maths heavy, and I have to say maths is not my strongest point. But anyway, so that's what I've got at the moment, and I'm quite pleased with how that's turned out. That looks okay. I think it's got potential, because you can either use the card this way round, I think, and have something nice, and also you could turn it that way round. Similarly, I'm thinking that people could maybe move this circle right up if they wanted to. So let's just see. If it wasn't in the middle there, like that, maybe that could go that side. It could certainly be moved over to this side and still look good. It could go maybe at the top and still look good. It could go in a bottom corner, and then that would give you space for a large sentiment or something. So using the same size circles, the person who follows this diagram can fiddle about and put the things wherever they want. And that's what I like about these card sketches that I do. That's what I'm aiming for. Right, so I have that. Now to me that looks a bit bare, so I'm going to want a sentiment in there somewhere. And I'm probably thinking something like a happy birthday or something. So I mean, if it was a square sentiment, or you know, like that, you see how kind of clumsy that looks? It overlaps the circles. Besides which, what would you do? Would you put that up on dimensionals or put these on dimensionals? So I don't think for me a big sort of square is going to work. Let's see what else I've got in here that might be so. Well, that's the same sort of size as a sentiment, so you could put it across here, but that does kind of limit what, you know, what paper you can use there, because it ruins any kind of design, but it would still look good. I think you could, you know, you could put it anywhere. You could put it up here, you could put it here, you could put it here. Yeah, personally I might go with that, or I might go with that. Anyway, my options are open at the moment, and that's what I like about this. I also think this card needs a bit of something else. So I'm thinking maybe, how about, I've got some little thin strips in here. I've usually got some little tiny bits. I cut out all these little strips off the edges of my, you know, whatever paper I'm not going to use. These are scraps. I cut them into these little thin strips, and then I can use them for making those, you know, those papers. So you put them strip by strip by strip. Make your own paper. I'm sure I must have some little thin strips in, sorry, rummaging about in here, but this is like, you know, welcome to my world. This is what I do each time when I'm trying to make a card, or I'm trying to make a design for a card. I haven't got any very thin ones. I was hoping I'd have some really thin ones, but that's okay. That's about 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Okay, that'll do. Let's try these pieces. Put this junk out of the way. So, right, okay, so I think it could do with a straight line, and I could either put it there, or I could put it there. That kind of divides the card in half then, really, and so does that. So I'm thinking that maybe I could put it along that centre line, but down the centre of this. So let's see how that looks. That's our, if I put it underneath the circle, again, as I say, it's a whole lot of fiddling about. It's just until you come up with something that you like the look of. That, no, that's too big, isn't it? Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. So that goes there. So I quite like that, with that offset line down it like that. I mean, if I put a flower in the middle of this, and I could maybe put leaves on this to make it like a long stem or something. So that looks nice. What would happen if I had not one piece, but actually two pieces? So let's slip this under. Right, okay, now I'd need to move that one over a little bit. and that one. Now that to me actually looks really nice. I quite like that. I think that's quite quirky. It looks really nice and I can see potential for that. So that actually might well be my design for this week. I want to make it quite simple, and then that means then that I can't really put my sentiment there or there because it's too busy on one side and too empty on the other side. So I would put my sentiment here. Maybe I'd use it, make it into a little banner or something, or I would put my sentiment here maybe. Oh, that looks nice. Quite like that. So yeah, I'd put my sentiment down there. Right, so now I've got these in place. Let me just draw around these just to, you know, give me an idea. This piece of card that I'm using here, just as a, you know, just as a bit, that looks about 1/2 inch to me. I would say that's probably 1/2 inch. Yeah, 1/2 inch or 1/2 inch. Oh God, sorry, I don't know what the millimeters are until I work it out. That's another thing. I always draw my cards I always draw my card sketches to size so that I can just measure the millimeters, because here in England obviously we use inches. Right, now I quite like that how it is. I mean, potentially we could cross it over as well. That would look nice too. If you cut 2 strips, you could kind of cross them over. Let's put that back. Yeah, see, that's nice. I mean, you could make that as ribbon or strips. Even if you turn the card that way round, that still looks nice. So yeah, actually, I'm going to cut these 2 strips out. These are about 1/8 of an inch, and basically I'm just going to kind of have a fiddle about with them when I come to make the card. So I'm just going to draw down there, there and there, and the next one needs to be sort of about that distance. So don't forget, this is still rough sketch. And the only bit left for me then to do with this card sketch is to firm it up and to actually get these measurements correct. So to my eye, I think that the gap between these 2 here needs to be in the centre between here and here. So I'll just do this in inches for now for ease, if you don't mind. So what I've got there is 2 1/16. Well, I'll forget about the 1/16 for now, and I'll say it's 2 inches. So if I mark at 1 inch, that's the centre of the distance between here and here. Okay, so if I put that down there and mark that as a sort of a dotted line, that will give me some idea of where to put the strips. I mean, I could make it 1 7/16, but you know, when people are following your card sketches, who on earth can work that out? That's just ridiculous. So what I'm saying then is that my strips that I just put in randomly, I'm now going to move over so that the gap, the gap between the 2 strips, I'll show you in a moment when I finish rubbing this out. So the gap between the 2 strips is that centre line. Like I say, this is where all the math side of things comes in. Right, so that's that centre line. I'll keep that going across. So my strips then could go, bearing in mind that that's the centre line, my strips could go one here like that, and one here like that, with that centre line. Once I get that straight, that centre line, so they go either side of the centre line. That looks quite nice. That to me pleases my eye because of my, as I say, I've got OCD-ish. Then if I pop that on, yeah, see, that looks okay to me. And that on, that looks quite good to me, especially with that either there or there. So that's what I'm going to do. Right, then I know these strips are 1/8, so I'm going to, this centre line here, I'm going to leave 1/8 here, so this is going to be 1/16 gap, 1/16 gap, and I'm actually going to put my sentiment strips here. Not my sentiment strips, my little sort of coloured strips here, and well, I can't even see if that's straight, to be honest with you. Let's turn it round so I can see what I'm doing. So here and here, and I shall put the other one the same distance away the other side of that centre line, which makes that there. And whoops, and there. That's about 1/8. There we go. So that's going to be, these are going to be my little card strips or ribbon strips or whatever I'm going to use, and they are now centered up in this space on this side of the card. Yeah, and then the measurements I'll give for people, besides the overall size, is what this gap measurement is, and this is 1 inch from the outside edge of the card. I mean, it's 1 and, you know, 15/16 or something from the inside edge, so I just go whatever's easiest. So the measurements will be that gap there from the outside edge of this to the outside edge of the actual card. The actual card is 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres. And that from there people can get, you know, an idea of where to place their things. So I hope, oh, he's so cute, this little owl. Maybe he can sit there. Oh, look how sweet that is. He might go there actually. So that basically is how I do these card sketches. I do the same thing every week. So I start with the outline, of which I have the template, and I just draw around it. Now it's got the measurements on it, it's got the markings on it for where the halfway lines are. I top it with the mat that I'm going to use, which is usually this one, and then I do all the workings on in this section here. And every time I cut out circles, squares, straight lines, as you can see from my scrap box there, I just drag out what I've got and fiddle about with it until I get something that's quite pleasing. So this will be, once I've firmed it all up and I've done the measurements correctly from here to here, and I've done all the lines straight and everything, this is going to be this week's card sketch project. Because, as I say, I think it's got potential to go this way. I think you could use it this way. I think you could move the circles over, the lines up. It's got potential to, you know, for lots of things to happen to it. Okay, thank you. I hope that that was useful for you. As I say, I might do a few more of these, especially when I do a more complex layered card as well. That way you can see how all the layers work. Okay, now it's just going to be a case of drawing up finalising the card sketch, making the cards and posting them for this week. So this is going to be this week's challenge. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye now.